You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. Well, I've got a very special guest in the house. The last time he was on, he was still a special guest, but it really wasn't set up the same way. I had all other guests that were supposed to attend, and we kind of had a diversion at the last second. So I thought I would reach out to Phil and ask him to come back and spend a little bit more time before I actually send an email out to his opponent, which I'm going to do today. And I want to give Victor the same chance that Phil has and the same style show. So if Victor is watching or anybody in his circle of trust is watching, this is what he's going to be up against when he comes on the show. So I look forward to talking with you, Phil. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, John.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how long you've been around.
Well, Val, my better half, and I moved to Grand Paradiso, one of the Northport Welland Park communities, about 5 years ago. I spent the better part of those 5 years working for and in my community as we transitioned from developer to homeowner control. I volunteered for the Northport tax 1% tax oversight advisory board and attended most of the commissioner meetings and workshops as I got to know the city a little better. And this past year, after speaking with Jill Luke, who's terming out, decided it was time to get more involved with the city, and I went ahead and threw my hat in the ring for District 5 Commissioner.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell everybody on the radio that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you guys that are out there on Facebook right now, if you have a direct question to Phil, keep it right on the political lines. I don't need to know your opinion, but I would love to have questions so that Mr. Stokes can answer your questions directly, which doesn't happen too often in this world of ours today. So feel free to shoot me a quick comment. If not, use my cell phone number at 941-391-4663 and go ahead and shoot me a quick text, and I promise you I'll get it on the air and I'll ask him questions. So I'm going to make an adjustment down here at the bottom for scrolling purposes. So you have my cell phone number and you can text me all you want. So as we go through this, Phil, I got a real trick question for you right out the gate. So, you know, I have Peter Bartolotto on a lot, and he always says, ask them what they're going to do. So what I would like to know is, I'm not asking for a laundry list, but if you had a choice between two things that you yourself as a commissioner have listened to people and figured out yourself, what are two things that you would like to accomplish in your first term?
That's an easy question. There are more than two, but certainly first and foremost is helping to promote more economic development in our city. As I've said before, and many people have said, Northport's been pretty much a residential bedroom community for the better part of 65 years. And as more and more people come to Northport, and it is inevitable, it's a great location. Population growth is booming. We're the 9th fastest growing city in the United States of America. As that happens, with all the services we have to provide to the folks coming to the city, if we don't develop economically, bring retail, commercial, and industrial business to the city to shift the tax burden off property owners, then it's going to be that much more difficult for our property owners in the city of Northport. So first and foremost, I intend to work hard with my fellow commissioners, with city management, with county economic development folks to really push this vision And as Peter has said many times, it's not enough just to say the vision or to state the vision. It's what's your plan and how you're going to get it done. And I agree with that. You know, some of these projects are in their early stages. Part of our problem is our ULDC really needs to be revamped, which is just in its early stages. We've got perhaps close to 2 years to make our city more economic development friendly. But I think as a commissioner, to be able to bring together folks who are interested in investing in our city, get them together with those folks who own property throughout Northport. We have, if you drive around our city, there is an enormous amount of land that people say, my God, we could develop all over the place. Problem is, most of that land's owned by private ownership, by private folks, trusts. Bringing together those parties, helping to show them how there is a mutually beneficial advantage to collaborate and work together to bring development to our city, I think is a primary function. And it's something that I will beat the drum on day in and day out. Secondarily, are bringing, and it goes hand in hand with economic development, is bringing good, high-paying jobs with upward mobility. I think it's important that the development we do is strategic, that it attracts businesses that pay well and that have promotional opportunities for our citizens. Almost everyone in Northport goes elsewhere to work. And I'll add a third, and that's our infrastructure. There are so many projects that have been not kicked down the road, but just take forever to get done. And one commissioner can't wave a magic wand and get these things done overnight, but it requires being the squeaky wheel day in and day out, pushing for these issues, pushing for these projects to get done. Price Boulevard widening is the one that jumps right out, as well as Mineral Springs.
So I've got two questions. Justin Cody Willis, I'm going to combine yours with Peter Bartolotis. What's your plan on how to get it done? That's Peter's. Okay. What, and I think you overlaid some of that, but, and this goes in hand with Justin, is what is your plan to bring those good paying jobs here? And I'm gonna add a caveat to that, is we've had this conversation over and over and over again for a long time. So what are you going to attempt to do differently than what we've been doing? Because doing the same thing over and over and over again is the definition of one word that I won't use because I don't want to label you with that. So how about let's just let you answer the question.
Well, you know, to say that any one commissioner can simply have that kind of impact, I think is a bit naive. However, I think that what's different now versus the past is that our city's at a critical turning point. And I think for the first time in maybe a long time, we have a commission and a city manager that recognizes the critical importance of making some of these changes happen. If not, we might well miss some of the opportunity that this city has. And personally, I believe it's taken my skill set in bringing people together, be able to get people in a room, talk about the mutual advantages in putting together a collaborative effort to make things happen, and pushing day in and day out, keeping it on the table in front of everybody and pushing. I don't think there's any magic to this. I think it just takes a commitment, not just on the part of one commissioner, but on the part of the entire commission, our city government, and working the relationships we have in our county and working relationships that we develop privately. The city can't do this all by itself. It needs to attract people who see the value in coming to Northport and developing in Northport. And I think that the city commission and city government can, through a variety of tools, create an environment where the right types of businesses, those businesses that can employ good paying jobs and upwardly mobile paying jobs, can be done. You know, we have a lot of gas stations. We have a lot of car washes. We have, and we can use more in upscale restaurants, but we need commercial and industrial business here in this city that have all levels of employment and the opportunity for people to climb that ladder and make more money. And I think, you know, any commissioner who sits here or any candidate who sits here and says, I can wave a magic wand or I have this magic idea that nobody else has, is naive. It's getting up every day and doing the job every single day, reaching out to people, explaining to them, getting them here to the city, putting them together with people. It's, I hate to use the term making deals, because in the city, it's not so much that as bringing together parties who see a mutual interest and a mutual opportunity to do well and benefit from that collaboration. And all I can say is that every day I will focus on this. And I think the timing's right for it.
So I've got two questions for you, and I'm not going to combine these two. I did that on purpose because they were generally the same. But I got a follow-up by Peter Bartolotta real quick, and then I'm going to put John Cooks up. Is the plan to bring big companies here, or is it to develop an oh shoot,
An incubator environment?
An incubator, sorry, my contact dried. Incubator environment that drives new technology?
Both. I see no reason why we can't have both. There's 104 square miles of this city. There are 9 activity centers. I believe we can have a little of both. We can have a little bit of everything.
Well, and I'm going to put John's up. Peter, if you've got a follow-up for that, I'd love to have it. Justin, if you have any questions, please continue to file them in. If it means cutting down any trees, you'll never get Alice White on your side. I think Alice White has her tree ordinance now, but what's your answer to that? And then I'll see what your answer is, and then I'm going to see if I can't help you. If you got a problem.
You know, I've heard it said by Jerome Fletcher, our city manager, a number of times, and I concur 100%. As this city develops economically, okay, whether it's residential, retail, commercial, or industrial growth, the environment of our city has to not be an afterthought, but a cornerstone of every dialogue and every discussion. If it's brought up at the end, it's too late. And I think that our city leadership is cognizant of it. It's one of the things that makes Northport special. We have 28 parks and recreation areas. We have some beautiful, beautiful places in the city of Northport to enjoy, and we can't compromise that. So I think that it needs to be a critical element of any discussion of economic development. And I think that I'll point to Welland Park as a good example, a 70-acre lake, beautiful walking trails. When that project's built out, people are going to see how private and public parties can come together, build a magnificent development and village within the city of Northport, and pay proper respect to environmental sustainability. And I think we can do that all over the city.
So I'm gonna ask you a follow-up then, because it also, I want to go back to what you said earlier, is that yes, while you need to work together, there's more than one person that sits on the commission, and it only takes 3 votes to get something through. Um, if you were to see an opportunity for Northport, would you be scared because of trees to take advantage of that opportunity for Northport? If we were to bring a business here, would that put you in a hesitant situation?
Not a hesitant situation. I think that we just have to be careful that as development plans are put together, that a focus on maintaining our environment, being sensitive to scrub jays, to our tortoise preserves, uh, to our wildlife, to our trees. Wherever we can. Florida. I've lived places in the country where big developments have been built and they don't level the land. I understand it's different here in Florida. I get that. But at the same time, developers have to put back in. There has to be concerted effort to maintain our environment. And if we're going to have to take trees down, we got to put trees back in. And I'm all for fighting for that. Um, Alice and I think Alice gets where I'm coming from. I mean, a month or so back, I was down there on my hands and knees planting in front of the Northport Arts Center. I am a big supporter of our conservation folks in the city. Uh, One of the first things I did after declaring my candidacy was Jill Luke and Alice got me together with our group at the conservatory at the conservation group and sat down, had lunch, and I got myself a good 2-3 hour education on the things that are important here environmentally in the city. I think you can do both. I'm not scared of it. I think we have to develop. I think it's going to happen anyway. I think it's good that we're going to have commissioners, including myself, on this commission who care enough about the environment to make sure that it does find its place as a cornerstone in any discussions that go on regarding development.
Well, I've got another one. I'm going to let you read this one out loud. It's by Justin Cody Willis.
How do we attract those people? What specific tools could we use? Where do you put them? How do you plan to work to change the zoning to bring the infrastructure needed for more business, more industrial business? How do we keep the business that are here?
Well, and I'm going to add a caveat to that too. With what he just said, I want you to draw out a picture of what you think Northport's going to look like 10 years from now. If you brought all this with you, and you kind of know where that question came from.
Yep. Well, to break it down in pieces, Justin, I think that there have been and there are a number of developers and builders who are already working with our city. And some of them want to do more and want to become more involved. But these folks can take us to other folks. We have a lot of resources that can introduce us and connect us with groups and organizations and individuals who are looking for a place to call home, are looking for a place to build their businesses. And I think that takes a group of commissioners who are willing to reach outside the city to find those folks. And I think it involves on a regular basis getting together with them, helping to show them why Northport is an opportune place for them to find and call home. And I think that, um, could I see the question again, John? Because there was a second half of that I'd like to address. Yeah, the zoning. Maybe some people know, maybe some don't. Our neighborhood services department, under Elena Ray, has already commenced the project of beginning to revamp our ULDC, our overall comprehensive plan for how we develop our city. We are not and haven't been the most economically development friendly city. And that project is something that we've now got the people in place who are really the talented people and folks who have the experience and the expertise to be able to redo our zoning, to take our 9 activity centers and decide what percentages need to be residential, retail, commercial, and industrial, and to make developers' ability to work with our city a little more friendly and a little more easy. But it is a project. I got to tell you, it's not something that's going to get done this year or even next year. From what I hear, it's almost a 2-year plan to overhaul the ULDC. And in the meantime, we've got to start attracting these people. We've got to start showing potential investment companies and individuals that Northport's headed in the right direction. We've got the population base here to help support a strong labor force, and a lot of pieces of the puzzle have to go into motion at the same time. But we are talking a project that's going to take years. I mean, people like you say, John, have been talking about it for years, and well, I shouldn't say not a whole lot's gotten done, but not nearly as much as we'd like to see has gotten done. Can Phil speak to his time on the surtax committee, what lessons were learned, and how it affects projects like Price Boulevard going forward? Hi, Ginger. Thanks for the question. Um, I spent 2 years on the tax oversight advisory board. We met a number of times, and quite frankly, to my disappointment, had difficulty getting a quorum. Uh, that particular advisory board requires 4 individuals, and invariably 3 showed, and we fell short many times. However, I did have the opportunity to go through a mountain of books for a period of years on where our surtax dollars were being spent. And many people don't really understand the surtax, and that is coming up in this November's as a referendum in November on at election time. Um, Surtax is levied by the county. It's 1 cent on every dollar. It's on the first $5,000 of any purchase. And those dollars are dispersed by the county to cities and municipalities based on population. So Northport receives a huge portion of those surtax dollars. And over the next 15 years, assuming the in November that the voters vote to renew the surtax, Northport stands to see in excess of $300 million. Those dollars go for all sorts of infrastructure, everything from police and fire stations to road widening to road improvement, new roads, uh, water and sewer projects, all kinds of infrastructure. Without those dollars, most of the projects, infrastructure projects that our city needs and every city needs would not happen. So it is imperative that everybody get out in November. In addition to voting for me for Northport Commission, make sure you vote for the surtax to be renewed. These dollars, just so people realize, cannot be used to operate. They can only be used to build infrastructure. So they are targeted. And a good 10 to 20% of those dollars come from visitors and people outside the county who are spending dollars in our county. So I think what I learned is how important the surtax is. And if people want to know more, I learned a lot by going on the Northport website, and you can actually go in and see all the projects that have been built with surtax dollars and all the projects that are on the drawing board out over the next 10 to 15 years. And they're worth looking at because these are not projects that get done in a month, 2 months, even 1 year, 2 years, even 5 years. Some of these projects are on the drawing boards for what seems like ever, but they're there, they're prioritized, and city government is working all the time to move these projects forward. I look forward to, while certainly I wasn't a creator, I'm looking forward to be sitting on the Northport Commission when Price Boulevard finally gets widened. And I hope I don't have to serve 2 full terms to do that.
So do you feel like Price Boulevard is a top priority for our city?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's the top infrastructure project, but by no means is it the only important one. It is just one that our citizens have been waiting an awfully long time for. If you go downtown, I mean, especially during school hours when kids are coming and going, I mean, that section is a disaster. I mean, it's just bumper to bumper. That project just needs to get off the ground and get done, and it's getting closer. I mean, bonds will fund it, and initially, and then surtax will pay those bonds. So the pieces are in place, the plan's in place. It's a matter of just pushing this project and getting it done.
So I've got another one from Peter Bartolotta real quick. We need alternatives to Price Boulevard.
I wouldn't dispute that. I do believe that part of our overall city plan is to look at new roads and where they can be built. There's no doubt over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have to build new roads. We're going to have to take some of the traffic pressure off of some of our major thoroughfares. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I could not sit here now and tell you where and what, but I can tell you that it's not off the radar screen of our city government. They appreciate it. They understand it. I've had conversations, and let's face it, Price, Route 41, Route 75. I mean, we need, as more and more people come to our city, we are just simply going to have to, work on this area of our infrastructure. And again, another reason why the surtax is absolutely imperative that people vote for. I know it's difficult. I believe there's some, law that now city government can't actually, in the 6 months preceding a referendum like this, promote it. But I'm a candidate, and I can, and I've written some op-ed pieces that I plan on getting published in the local papers, just because people need to be aware. I know Northport Forward pushes it at every one of their meetings. I can't tell you, is equally important as it is to get me elected in November. It's equally important to vote for this surtax.
So I'm going to throw Justin's out here real quick because it has been thrown out there a lot, and I've heard people talking about it. It's a third turn lane on Price Boulevard as the caveat to the next problem. I consider it just kicking the can down the road. A boulevard is 4 lanes. It's always been 4 lanes. It's always been destined. Do you have a vision that should be any different than that, or are you sticking with 4 lanes and let's just get it done?
I suppose I could justify taking a position either way. I tell you the honest truth. I don't think I know enough about that question to answer it intelligently. I think I'd look more to our subject matter experts in the city and the consulting groups that have helped develop this plan for Price and get a good feel for what they think. I'm certainly not a traffic expert, and I don't think any of the individuals sitting on that commission are. I really think that's a question that needs to be directed to subject matter professionals, and that's where the answer should come from. I don't mean to duck the question, Justin, but there's just some things if you don't know the answer to, it's silly to hypothesize when you really don't know.
So let me ask it this way: are you willing to say that there's a benefit to either one right now for our city, whether it's put a turn lane in or go 4 lanes and just get it done? Is there an advantage to that right now from what you've seen on the road? Because a third lane in there is definitely going to help, but I don't know if it's going to help with school buses and trash trucks and mail delivery, and let alone if we have an emergency. I just don't know. I pulled over the other day to get out of the way of all the fire trucks coming past me, and I went up into the grass because you're really supposed to really give them a lot of leeway, and it's really where the road's supposed to be. But I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, I would think I'd maintain an open enough mind about it. Like I say, I think that there are probably spots along Price where that would be helpful. I think that, safety has got to be a priority. And I think that, to exclude that, to ask me that question and for me to exclude that option, knowing as little as I do about the subject, I think it'd be irresponsible. So I would say here and now, as you ask it to me, I'd maintain an open mind. I'd ask the question myself when I'm sitting on that commission. Why not?
I put Bobby Shots up there just as a statement. I'm going to go on to Peter Barlotta, which is always the question that follows do an infrastructure project, and is there money for it right now? Because I think if there was money for it right now, they'd already be spinning their wheels trying to figure out how to do it.
Well, my understanding is the commission's made a decision at the recommendation, I believe, of city management that bonds will be issued for that project. That's where the money will come from. They're out actively seeking the funding, and then those bonds would be paid back by surtax. So to answer that question is, for the right projects, there's always money. And I believe that the city's actually involved in that process right now.
What do you see, Warm Willow Springs? I'm not going to change gears on you too much, but a lot of people have had different opinions on Warm Willow Springs. What do you see as Warm Willow Springs being part of Northport?
It's funny. Coming here 5 years ago, people talked about the springs, and a lot of people in Northport, not just Welland Park, but Northport proper, you hear mixed stories. Oh my God, it's a mess. It's falling apart. It's this, it's that. And I have to say, I'm remiss that it took me a number of years before I finally went over and visited the springs. And I'll tell you, I guess I had been conditioned to expect the worst, but I was impressed. I thought it was beautiful. It's not just a sinkhole. It's a beautiful lake with gorgeous trees. It's old Florida. There are 80 acres to develop there. And years ago, our city government recognized something had to be done with it. And nothing's been done with it. The buildings are falling down. They're a mess. And we're band-aiding the problem as best we can. But I think city governments finally come to realize that the springs and the development of the springs is not a project that should be done with taxpayer dollars. That decision, I believe, has been made. Everybody's in concurrence. And I would not be surprised to see in the next couple of months a couple proposals come before the commission to develop Mineral Springs, the entire property. whether it's an eco park or whether it's whatever. I couldn't begin to imagine the different opportunities, but I can tell you this, there is a common vision in city leadership and city government to develop the springs. It is part of our DNA. People from around the world come to Mineral Springs, and it's synonymous with Northport. And 135,000 people are visiting the springs this year. It makes money. It makes $300,000-400,000 a year. It is accumulated earnings of up near $1 million, which will help to band-aid this project through until outside development can come in here and do what really needs to be done to make this a real cornerstone of our city. It's another activity center area that can be a huge revenue producer for our city and complement Northport economically and environmentally. I'm all in on Mineral Springs, but I can tell you this, I won't vote for anything that puts the onus for this development on the backs of our residential taxpayers. And I don't believe any of the other commissioners feel that way either. I don't mean to speak for them, but I just think everybody's come to realize with the cost of developing Mineral Springs, it's going to take outside investment.
So I have a question that came in through Stephanie Gibson, and it kind of can go both ways here, whether the entry into War Mineral Springs or the Price Boulevard. But talk about passing a referendum on road, a road referendum. I'll just call it. Talk about a little bit of on that topic, but I also want to know how you would get people to actually vote when we have such a hard time getting people to vote now. What is your target to get people more involved with the city? You talked a little bit about not having people on the different committees. There's got to be a reason why. We have retirees here, but there has to be a reason why. But what is your focus on trying to get people engaged?
I'll tell you, it's a great question, a great question. And you know, most of the guests you've had on this show, you've had this discussion with. And it is a serious, serious issue, not just here in Northport, but across the country. Less than half the people in this country vote. And I have always said that voting is not just a right, but it's a responsibility. And especially for those people who now find themselves in an opportune situation where they have the time, they have the life skills and experience to give back and make a contribution. And I have to say that every commissioner meeting that I go to, and I go to all of them, before the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting, up on the screen comes a list of all the advisory boards that need volunteers. And I cringe every time I see it. And I've asked people in and around the Welland Park area, volunteer, bring your skill set. And you know, that is part of a larger dialogue, which is, as you touched on, getting people involved in the city. People tend to pay attention when it affects their pocketbook or their family. By and large, 75% of the people, and don't quote me on the statistics because there's no foundational basis for them, except that my feeling is there's about 5% on each side of any issue passionately, another 15% that are paying attention tangentially, and 75% who get up every day, go to work, raise their families, enjoy their lives, say, here, I'll pay my tax, I'll pay my dues, whatever it is, and I'll let somebody else handle this stuff. And I don't think it's enough, but I do appreciate, because as I grew up and worked during my career, I didn't have the time or the focus. I think that communication's a big part of it. You know, social media can be a great tool. Unfortunately, it's become a place where opinion sort of outlasts truth and fact, but I think the opportunity to reach people is there. And I think that city government and its leadership, as well as county, state, federal, need to spend more time educating people, getting them involved, making them aware of how important it is to have their say. It's not enough just to complain and criticize. You have to be willing to make a contribution. You have to be willing to volunteer. Most of the way things are there for a reason. Very often, and I've found it at every level where I've been involved with people, most of the cases when people understand why things are the way they are, they scratch their head and go, okay. They may not agree, they may not be happy, but they get it. And I think that's a big problem. I see it at the city level. It's the lack of information and the lack of understanding and insight is frightening to some degree. And I think it takes leadership who's not afraid to get out there and talk with the people. That's who elects us. That's who we're responsible to. And I think one by one, in small groups, bigger groups, city government has to be more available to the citizenry and share what they see running the day-to-days of a city government, and let people know and get them involved in these issues. And referendums are great, opinion polls are great, surveys are great, but if people don't have a foundational understanding of what's involved, then it becomes a like or a dislike, or who promotes a position the loudest. And I think that can be dangerous as well. So I don't know if I totally answered your question, but I think it's a problem. I wish I could wave that wand and make everybody more focused on why it's so important to be involved.
Well, and you did, because part of the, and Justin asked what was the question. It was really, how do you get people engaged in voting for referendum? How do you get them understanding when we have that problem anyway? Because you're right, if we only have a small group of people who are voting one way, and they have their, and I don't want to say small, but that powerful group of people, they can sway a vote, and it's because nobody else is educated and understand what's going on. And then it just happens, and people go, well, why don't we have a road? It's because you didn't participate when we asked you for, the money for the road. So I've got a follow up on a question I asked earlier, and it's you see a city where anyone who wants a qualified job can get one. You have an education system that supports our workforce and goals. You see a city that encourages young people to live here and work here. And you see a city that is diverse in its dining, its entertainment, and its quality of life. Do you agree that that's the city that you see for Northport in the growth that we have the potential for?
Absolutely. And it's go ahead.
How do we get there then? We don't have that today. So what is the roadmap and the start of the roadmap to get there?
Actually, some of the planning and preliminaries are in place. The activity zones that are set up around the city, and they're really economic development zones, in my opinion, but activity centers sound perhaps more friendly. They're an attempt to look at our city as an overview and design a planned blend of residential, retail, commercial, and industrial business so that people can live, work, and play in their areas. And I think that setting those strategic goals, which I believe in most instances are in place, then require putting that plan together, which is making sure our zoning, and our comprehensive plan is conducive to attracting this type of business and development. Then it's, as I said earlier on, going out there and bringing the parties together and seeing to it that the vision for each of these areas get developed over time. We're talking multiple commissions. We're talking years. But I think that if the vision's shared by everyone, and as new folks join the commission over the years, everybody pushes in that same direction. It isn't magic that makes it happen. It's just grit. It's just getting up every day and working at it. It's attracting the types of businesses and incentivizing the types of businesses that can offer those good paying jobs, those jobs where people can start out careers at. And I think that there's no magic to it. It's been done. It just has to be done. It has to be done by leadership who get up every day and focus on it. And I certainly intend to focus on it every single day. We may have lost you there, John.
I don't want. I want you to hear the question on the Welland Park side of things, and uh, where do you feel? And I don't want this to be a mudslinging moment. I want to keep this right where you've been, very professional and honest and upfront. Um, how do you feel about Welland Park and the future decision that may come, whether it's going to not be part of Northport or it is going to be part of Northport? How, if it's not part of Northport, how is that going to change a lot of the strategy of Northport?
Well, to answer that pointed question, I think it it would certainly set Northport back on its heels. Huge millions, tens of millions of dollars of revenue would be lost if Welland Park got shifted to the county. But would it kill Northport? No. What would Northport would require itself to re-energize, to look at the other 8 activity centers, to push that much harder to build Welland Park-like projects elsewhere around the city. And I don't mean identically like, but similar. This city's 104 square miles. It is resilient. It has existed for 65 plus years. It will exist for 164 more years. It'll survive with or without Welland Park. But I will tell you this, Welland Park is one of the better things that have happened to our city. It is a perfect example of where the vision of Northport is going. The people that live in Welland Park, and it goes to the conversation we just had about people understanding and becoming more knowledgeable. Being a part of Northport is most advantageous to the folks in Welland Park. There are no guarantees in the county. The county has a ton of problems. Why would somebody want to be a small fish in a big pond when they could be a bigger fish in a small pond in Northport? We are so critical to Northport in many respects, and Northport opened its arms to Welland Park. There are synergies here. I don't care about a river running through it. We are part of Northport. We've always been part of Northport, and we should continue to be. This area has so much to offer the folks who live in Northport proper, and Northport has so much to offer the people of Welland Park. I continue to tell people all the time about the parks and the rec areas, and Peter touched on this at your last interview. He used to take people on tours of Northport, and I was fortunate enough with Val, Debbie McDowell, or Commissioner McDowell, took Val and I a month or so back on a tour in Northport. And my reaction was exactly what Peter said. Is this in, are we still in Northport? And wow. And I have to tell you, there is so much to enjoy here. I think that the portion of Welland Park that advocates for de-annexation is not as big a portion as it was 5 years ago. And I truly believe that if and when the time ever comes where it might find its way to a referendum, a vote by the folks who live in Welland Park. I would like to think that the people who live in Welland Park will appreciate how valuable it is and how proud they should be to call themselves Northporters and to be part of this city. If it happens, Northport will survive, but by God, it will set us back years. It will cost the taxpayers of Northport tens of millions of dollars in lost revenues. It has already cost tens of thousands of dollars for the city to deal with this de-annexation group. And the reasons for it, 5 years ago, a jacked up millage rate, city government that I don't think was as responsive in any way as it is today. I think that those things have changed. I don't see a reason for de-annexation. I just don't. And I think if we spend enough time sharing those beliefs, those ideas, those rationales, I believe even if it came to a vote, the majority of Welland Park may well decide that Northport is worth calling home. I know I'm proud to call it home, and I intend to continue to call it home.
So I got another question. This one's from Bobby Schott. Do you think our economic development division is doing enough to go after big companies leaving California and other states? And I'm gonna say that because Justin Cody Willis was also throwing in that isn't that like the job for our economic development team to go out and get some of these big players to come here? So can you add your 2 cents in, because there's a travel budget that you have. Should that be opened up a little bit too, to maybe allow you to and other commissioners to help that economic division?
You know, it's interesting. If you look at the pie graph of where we spend our budget dollars, the amount, the little slice that goes to economic development is appalling. When you look at the size of our city, 80,000 people, a $216 million budget, we spend more money on an awful lot of other areas. And our staff is a handful of people. I'm happy to say that Mr. Fletcher, our city manager, recognizes the need to build that department bigger and stronger. I also appreciate that our city management and our commissioners recognize that by itself, we can't accomplish as much as we can with partnerships. And our county economic development team and private parties need to all come together to help grow our economic development. The division by itself will not be able to do it all, but it takes everybody working in a concerted effort with the same vision. And I think those pieces are all coming together. I really, really do. I think over the next 4 years, you will see big changes.
Awesome. We've got about 1 minute left. I truly appreciate you spending your time and everyone being a participant on this show. So thanks to everybody for your questions, your comments. Please share this video. Help Phil get the word out. I'm going to hopefully I'll have Victor on in the very near future, and I'll ask you to do the same thing. Hope this has been an enjoyable time for you, Phil. I appreciate you.
John, thank you very much. Thank you for those folks who chimed in. I would have hoped a lot more. I do read some social media stuff, and there are folks out there who have questions and concerns. You can go to my Facebook page. You can go to my webpage. You can get my phone number, my email. Reach out to me. I am happy to take time for any respectful, honest inquiries, questions, comments. I'm there for you. I'm there for you now as a candidate, and I will be there for you when I get elected in November.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Be safe. It's raining outside, so get home careful. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.